great racing we've had from Donington so far. So this is how the championship stands for the 750 after 3 races run. McElnay heads it up. Then it's Ron Haslam, still searching for that elusive first win. Stringer, Morrison, Trevor Nation on the other Norton, and Mike Edwards from Wigan on a Yamaha. Well, we've seen some pretty breathtaking overtaking moves. Riders diving into the bends. We've seen all sorts of racing. The technology needed to stop these bikes going into those turns is really something quite special.
Donington Park is probably the most severe test of braking on the UK circuits anyway. There's no doubt about that. And this is where it will really pay off. Places like the Isle of Man TT, where the braking is not as hard as one would think. And, but it's still nice to have it there, you can feel it there. And the riders have got the confidence. So it does have its effect, yes. In the old days when you just had the 2 pistons, of course here you've got 6 pistons, you're creating 6 pressure points onto the disc. And this in effect is 3 brakes in 1. So basically this machine has got 6 brakes. We chase the tyre designers, the tyre designers chase us, and so we go on and on. This is where the improvement and development comes from. This is a sintered metal brake pad. We've worked with Kawasaki quite a long time now, and we have a very good relationship, and we help each other develop our own products. It works very well.
The increasingly sophisticated world of motorcycle technology. A little insight for you there on the braking equipment. That's the sort of thing they have to use here. And in response, really, to Steve Parrish's reference to Mick Grant and his tyre warmers, I think Mick Grant has been out and spent money on some fairly lavish equipment to keep the front tyre and indeed the rear tyre of Jamie Whittam's Suzuki, and indeed Jamie Whittam himself warm here at Donington. So let's hope that works well for the team Grant Suzuki. The front row, however, fairly good, and Whittam has got to come through from the back. There's Mick Grant. So that was an interesting manoeuvre. I just wonder if it works. Can Whittam get through from the second row down into Redgate? The front row, same as before. Haslam 5th fastest. John Reynolds, who had such a good start and then faded. Terry Reimer, race winner Mackenzie, and Rob McElnay, who also had a less than happy leg 1. So the full race distance, 16 laps, 40 miles it is. Ron Haslam, as I said, absolutely bursting to get the Norton to the front and stay there. And I think his tactics may be, Steve, to go for it from the word go.
Yes, I would certainly think so. Rob McElnay is out on his spare bike. He had problems. He led the race early at the early stages, or he's very close to leading it with Ron Haslam, but he had some problems, so he switched to his spare bike. So I think we'll see Rob up there a bit more. Neil Mackenzie has had a taste of that win, and I think he'll be pushing even harder this time. He's right bang back on form.
Well, John Reynolds, of course, will be wanting to get the Team Green Kawasaki in the results. Terry Reimer, the man who had to settle for 3rd place in leg 1, is certainly capable of the win, and I think he will be out to prove that he can take it. So the 24-year-old South Londoner aiming to make it quite a special weekend for London. Neil Mackenzie from Dunblane, 4th in the World Championship 1990, possibly along with Ron Haslam, one of the most talented riders in the race. And I have to include in that the man on pole position, Rob McElnay, number 8. He and Mackenzie known each other, raced against each other for many, many years throughout the British National Series, into Grand Prix together, and now here they are, both back in World Superbike, British Superbike, and Shell ACU 750cc Super Cup. 40 riders then, 16 laps, 40 miles the distance, and the weather holding good. The sun has gone away. We had some sun in the Super Sports class, but still it's fine. It's very humid, and if they can manage to get the duvet clear from Jamie Whittam's Suzuki, hopefully he'll be able to start.
I'm convinced that Mick Grant has told and convinced Jamie Whittam that he has got a tyre warmer, albeit that he looked like a sleeping blanket to me.
Well, it's nice to know that Mick Grant has got a sense of humour, but the weaving about there, as we said earlier, really to warm the tyres up, so Jamie Whittam felt that the duvet didn't work, obviously, because he's having to throw it about the tarmac. but they're all doing a little bit. Number 5 there, James Whittam. Number 10, Roger Burnett. Number 17 in the middle of your picture, Ray Stringer. Matt Llewellyn there from Glenfield, Leicester. We saw Matt, you may remember, at Snetterton riding without a perspex, and he tells us on good authority that on the Monday he could hardly move his neck. It was absolutely stiff with the buffeting from the wind, and we did think at the time, Steve, that he'd have some after effects.
Yes, because he was travelling down the straightaway at Snetterton, which is a very fast circuit, speeds of in excess of 150 miles an hour, near 160 miles an hour, and trying to force yourself through the air without being behind the perspex screen is very, very difficult. It's like, I think we said then, sticking your head out the sunroof on your car doing 160 miles an hour. Not that you'd likely to be wanting to do that.
James Whittam too, number 5, just might have a slight advantage. I don't know if it's relevant, but he's just appeared in the 400cc Super Sports and just won the thing. So A, he's going to be fairly pumped up in terms of the adrenaline flowing, and B, he will have just a few laps knowledge more of the Donington circuit. Is that relevant?
Well, there is that side of it, but on the minus factor, the 400 is so different. In fact, the 250 Suzuki is so different to ride than the big 750 four-stroke machine that he's out here on now. It's much, much heavier, this machine. It's much faster, so none of the braking points and none of the acceleration points are going to help him at all. So, no, I think it would probably be it won't be much help at all. In fact, I think it will be a hindrance.
Well, number 5, Jamie Whittam, is carrying, again, an on-bike camera for us, and I think the technology in that sort of area has improved dramatically and probably cultivated through the Formula One racing car scene to such an extent that the pictures now from mobile cameras are really quite excellent, and we'll be bringing you some of those shots as soon as it's opportune so to do. So reforming then, 40 riders go on the line for 16 laps of leg 2 of the 750s. 20 points for the win, not to mention the money. £500 as well goes to the winner of this leg. Across the front row, very quickly, it's Haslam, Reynolds. In the middle, it's Terry Reimer. Then number 77, Neil Mackenzie, and in pole position again, Rob McElnay. Exactly the same places as they started the first leg. Look for Ray Stringer, the yellow helmet on the slight left of centre of your picture now. Stringer is a good runner. If he can get a good start through from the second row, and he has indeed got a flying start. Look at Jamie Whittam as well, but Mackenzie and Reynolds vying for the advantage going into Redgate. Matt Llewellyn still in the thick of the action. Tim Bourne sweeping round.
There we have the shot from Jamie Whittam's bike. Again, it doesn't look like those tyre warmers he used at work, because some of these riders are getting the advantage. I think that's Ray Stringer there that's just passed him as they go down through Craner curves, and it takes a lot of nerve to throw these machines at over 120 miles an hour through these corners with cold tyres. But Jamie Whittam, he's fighting back. I think he feels that his tyres are up to temperature, and he's charging up behind Ray Stringer.
Well, Ray Stringer there, number 17, was indeed just ahead of James Whittam, but race leader, just as it was, a carbon copy of the early stages of leg 1. Stringer sweeping wide round the inside. Tim Bourne I saw there, the team green, very distinctive, number 33 rider. Tim Bourne, who is back for the first time after 4 weeks off at Snetterton. He virtually wore one of his toes away. Little toe was quite badly damaged, and he's been limping and hobbling all over the place, but he's now fit, or certainly 99% fit, on the team green Kawasaki, and he's in the middle of the pack with quite a bit to do. But teammate John Reynolds is out in front, so John Reynolds again down towards the Melbourne hairpin. Right with him it's McElnay, then it's teammate Terry Reimer, so the two Loctite Yamaha men in second and third. Then it's the Norton of Nation. Haslam is well down the order. It's Trevor Nation in fourth. So it's all change in the Norton camp. Trevor Nation is fourth. Ron Haslam is fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth place at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, Ron seemed to get a pretty bad start there, but John Reynolds is the man in front. He actually retired from the first race with brake problems. It's ironic, we were talking about this early on, but also Rob McElnay had brake problems. As we heard, that Donington Park is extremely tough on brakes. There is so many long straights onto very, very tight corners, and you can get to the stage where the brakes get so hot that the brake fluid can even boil as we talk. Rob McElney goes in through to the lead, but John Reynolds is having another look back, and Reynolds is on the outside, and that was so close. McElney, being the bigger guy, he said, that's my piece of road, and took it.
Well, that had me breathing in, Steve, because I thought for a moment there John Reynolds was going to go on the grass. It looked pretty close to me. Trevor Nation is in the search of a fairly elusive victory. He's had some good wins lately, but he's not been able to get his Norton to the front of the Super Cup racing. But he's in a super pace now. He's in a really strong position and challenging in 4th. Then in 5th place it's Neil Mackenzie, but he has to be a dark horse after what we saw him deliver in leg 1. Then it's Brian Morrison, number 2, but we're with Neil Mackenzie just briefly. Ahead of him it's Nation. Reynolds is still in 2nd. He's the green filling in the Loctite Yamaha Bred, but he's right there. Number 6, Reynolds, closing on the back of McElney. And whatever Rob McElney's problem was in leg 1, are we going to see a repeat performance?
Well, no, because he's on his spare bike. Rob's opted to use his 2nd bike, and it seems to be performing well. Terry Reimer's having a look on the inside, because the last thing he wants is his teammate Rob McElney getting too much of a lead, because he'd like to race with him. But it's going to be a tough task to pass John Reynolds. You see Ron Haslam now gone up into 8th position, and he's charging.
Well, immediately ahead, and look at the action. My goodness me, there's some traffic here. That's Carl Fogarty, number 9, the double world Formula 1 champion ahead of Ron Haslam. So Carl Fogarty from Blackburn, and we've had a fairly lean time of Carl Fogarty lately. Featured well in Super Cup in 89 and 90, but we didn't see him do a lot at Snetterton, and he is now under real pressure from Haslam. Fogarty, whose main ambition really is to be 500cc world champion, had just a little debut in the World Series in 1990 and was less than happy with the bike he rode, so he chose to get back to World F1 and World Superbike. And he's now really under the Haslam hammer, because Rocket Ron has got him in his sights. They're coming up under the bridge. Now this is where the speed of the Norton could tell. Yeah, I think you'll see Ron pass him here. He's on the inside line. Yes, the front wheel lifted as he came under the Dunlop Bridge. Haslam has gone through on the inside, and in fact Ron Haslam is the fastest man on the track at the moment with a lap time of 1:38.63. So, and Reynolds is going for the lead. The bike, I think Rob McElney has a problem again. It looked as though McElney was slowing. McElney almost sat up. Reynolds went through, then Terry Reimer thought, well, you can have the consolation prize, because he went for the win and Reimer's in front. So Terry Reimer, number 1 on the bike, number 1 in the race. Then it's John Reynolds. Trevor Nation is about to have a very serious dig at Rob McElney on the inside. Now watch the Norton go down the straight behind the OW01 Yamaha. It's Nation coming out of the slipstream down towards Redgate. Sits up, Rob Mack is there. Look at Mackenzie. No quarter asked, none given here. Nation, yes, McElney must have a problem, because they're going past him just too easily, Steve. Yeah, and it's given Terry Reimer the break to go through. He's passed Reynolds at that point, and now he's stretched out 3/4 of a second advantage on lap 4. So Terry Reimer will be real keen to get away, because he must know that Ron Haslam will be coming through the pack fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 riders all within 0.8 of a second, and look at McElney on the inside again of Trevor Nation. So 30-year-old Nation, previously from Salisbury, moved up to Hinckley in Leicester to be near the Norton factory, is really having a super race. There's nothing this big, burly, grinning Wiltshire gentleman likes more than a tooth and nail tussle. He really enjoys a good race. And he's getting one here. He's back in 3rd. Mackenzie now behind Macklin. I think Mackenzie's going to go for it. Mackenzie pulling out of the slipstream, and he's through. Well, I don't know, Steve. Something's puzzling me. Something's not well with Rob McElney, is it? No, I think he maybe has a brake problem again. He seems to be slow on this part of the course, but then we saw him go back past Trevor Nation on the opposite side of the circuit. So it's something that's rearing its ugly head at strange parts of the circuit. I can't yet work it out myself. Well, something of a paradox there. I can't really understand what it is, but Haslam has come out past Morrison. So Ron Haslam has gone past Brian Morrison, number 2. So look at Haslam now. He's right behind McElney. So Ron Haslam, as Steve Parrish said, certainly the fastest man on the circuit. He's closing now, and very shortly we're going to be treated to the spectacle of the 2 Nortons side by side. Mackenzie has gone past. There's Haslam, the next man to fall to Haslam will be Rob McElnay if he continues this rate of progress. Both these men are out on the 1990 Norton. They haven't yet got the 91 bike fully sorted and fully tested. It'll be debuted, I suspect, in the Isle of Man in the hands of Trevor Nation. Haslam isn't going to the Isle of Man. He's not known for his pure road race ability. Nation loves the TT and he can't wait to get his hands on the new Norton there.
Yeah, and the speed of the Norton is shown again there. It's past Rob McElnay as they went down the main straight, so he's up into 5th position now.
Well, we're focusing on the scrap now between 3rd, 4th and 5th, and it's Neil Mackenzie, the 29-year-old Scot, in between the two Norton men, and Haslam is increasing his rate of progress on such a scale that it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, before he goes past Mackenzie, and he's going to wait until he gets to a suitably quick part of the track to do it. Rob McElnay is slipping further and further back. The next man to have him is going to be Brian Morrison on the Drambuie Yamaha. But Mackenzie, Nation and Haslam number 20. 34 years of age, Ron Haslam from Langley Mill. When he's not racing motorbikes, he's very much a family man. Runs a deer farm, has various other interests. But one of the most respected and certainly one of the most talented riders on the British scene, just as this man is. Mackenzie going through, Nation not having any of it. Trevor Nation right with him. This is really close stuff.
Yeah, Neil Mackenzie nipped through. That's his favourite overtaking place once again. But we look on our monitor and Ron Haslam now again set the fastest lap. But he's going to struggle because it's one thing passing a bike down the straight as he's been doing with the speed, but he's now got the other Norton to pass. So it'll be quite interesting to see how he attacks Trevor Nation. He's going to have to pass him under braking all around the corners because I think the bikes will be very similar in speed.
Well, the number 20 Norton of Haslam was in 13th place at the end of the first lap, and he's now showing his front wheel to teammate Trevor Nation, and there will be some very basic team orders, which I suspect are don't whatever you do, bring each other off, and that's about as far as it goes, I would suspect.
Yeah, I would suspect that's the only team, and Trevor Nation goes through, passes Neil Mackenzie, or he tries to go through, and he does. He's on the inside line. There's nothing that Neil Mackenzie can do about that. That might open the door for Ron Haslam. We're going to have to wait and see.
We're tending to neglect a stalwart performance by John Reynolds on the Kawasaki, fighting hard in second place, but he's having a nice, quiet second place ride, totally unaware of the frantic scrapping that's going on for 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th places behind him. So John Reynolds has got to retain his composure and just keep on going, forcing the Team Green bike into what looks like a second place, because I have to say I don't think anybody can do anything now about Terry Reimer, but just look at this. Mackenzie it is in 3rd, then it's Nation, then it's Haslam. In fact, it's Haslam and then it's Nation. I beg your pardon, the roles have been reversed and McElnay is getting second wind.
Yeah, McElnay's fought back and he's passed Trevor Nation once again. Terry Reimer has now fought back with the fastest lap. He's down into the 1:37 bracket, so he's going to take a lot of catching. The winner from last year's series, he wants to show that he can come back to England and prove these boys that he's the best.
750cc 4-cylinder 4-strokes, except the rotary, which is a very special rotating design engine, and unbelievably quick as Haslam goes past Mackenzie again, but Mackenzie's on the inside line. He's not having any of that. And this is where this battle's going to go. It raged all the way through the first leg to the flag, and we're getting a repeat performance, except there are 2 people ahead of them. And look at Haslam down towards the Melbourne hairpin.
Yeah, he took the inside line. Neil Mackenzie will be hard pushed to do anything about that, but what he'll try and do is cut back, keep a tight line, get a good drive out of the loop, and then he might be trying for the inside at Goddard's, but we're going to have to see. He comes down. No, Haslam's knees well out in the way. Keep back, he's saying.
This is exactly the sort of performance that the British fans have missed from our scene for so many years, because these men have been away in Europe for the biggest part of the year, and they just haven't come to support the UK tracks or the UK meetings for a variety of reasons. A, because they're riding in Grand Prix, and B, because there hasn't been the prestige or the money or any other reason to race in the UK. But with the amount of coverage motorcycle racing is getting on television, the involvement of the big sponsors, and the prestige of the Super Cup series. It's pulled all the big names. The fans are now flocking through the gates like never before. And if motorcycle racing thrills you at home, then that's great stuff. And if you're not a motorcycle fan, then all I can say is you should be. Just look at Haslam and Reynolds, and he's got away from Neil Mackenzie now. I daren't pose the question of Steve Parish because his man is out in front. Terry Reimer, the Loctite Yamaha man, is out in front. But Haslam's really going for this one.
Yeah, John Reynolds is coming under serious threat now from Ron Haslam. I expect Ron Haslam to be moving into second position very, very shortly. Reynolds is doing a great job and he's riding so well, but Ron Haslam is on the charge. He's on a very fast motorcycle. He loves Donington Park, and he's just using his speed and his ability to force his way through the pack. But I don't see there's any way he can catch Terry Reimer. Lap after lap, Terry Reimer putting the fastest time in, so there's no way I can see it, unless he has a problem, that Ron Haslam can get near him.
Well, number 8, Rob McElnay, has disappeared from the leaderboard, so it looks as though that funny sort of problem he had with his bike has proved to be terminal. He's obviously broken down. I was saying earlier that they don't generally break down, but certainly Rob Mack has gone from the proceedings. But now the bunch has really tightened up in second, third and fourth place, and John Reynolds will now have to exercise all the cool. And there's Rob McElnay coasting across the track. Steve, any ideas?
Yeah, I think he's still got brake problems. I think he's just overshot at the chicane, and that's been his problem for the day. He's a big guy, Rob, but he's very hard on the brakes, and he's encountered these problems throughout training, so something's going to have to be looked at there.
Well, as I was saying, John Reynolds is going to have to call on all his reserves of tact, diplomacy and common sense, because breathing down his neck is one of the fastest men round Donington, and breathing down the neck of him is the bloke who just picked him in the first leg. So he's got hot talent behind him. Further down the order, James Whitham in 8th place, having a fairly lonely ride, and could see the pack disappearing into the S's.
Yeah, once again, Jamie Whitham seems to find himself a nice big open space. Every time we come to him, there's no one in front of him. So it's possible that that there's a few much closer behind, but out in front he has a clear track. But he's out of touch with the leaders, unfortunately, but still lapping at very respectable times. And you see the angle of the lead of the machine as it goes round the Melbourne loop, accelerating hard up to Goddard's corner. You'll see him put the brakes on in a minute. The front end of the machine will dip as he throws it into Goddard's left-hander as they come round to start another lap on the start and finish line.
Well, it's a pity really, because James Whitham, the man with whom we were just travelling, is right off the back of the leading 7. If he can only close on Carl Fogarty, he might get a tow and get in the thick of the action up front, because it really is all happening. Here's the race leader, number 1, Terry Reimer, from Barnhurst in South London. Then it's Ron Haslam in 2nd place, who doesn't look as though he's going to be able to do anything about the win, but if he can get the satisfaction of beating Neil Mackenzie in this leg, then I'm quite sure he'll settle for that. 20, Ron Haslam then in 2nd.
And I've just had confirmation that Rob McElnay on the Loctite Yamaha has had front brake problems, and that's the reason he's retired, so that's unfortunate for Rob McElnay.
Carl Fogarty is still very much in touch. Morrison, Nation, Mackenzie, Reynolds and Haslam, but the gap, 6 seconds, that's a formidable task at this stage into the race. And Reimer is riding the race of a lifetime. Remember, he is the reigning Super Cup champion and would be possibly at the head of the bunch had he contested the Snetterton meeting, but he was away elsewhere in the world doing other things for the Yamaha team. Mackenzie closing Haslam down dramatically on the brakes, underlining yet again just how vital the braking mechanism here is at Donington. It's a very fast track, but equally there are some very tight bends.
Yes, and fast straights leading onto them. There's points where they're braking from 160 miles an hour. One Pacific point is into the S's down to maybe 50 miles an hour, and that de-acceleration time is so small that you can see as Ron, on the brakes are on there, the bike becomes very light on the back. The whole machine tries to pivot around the front wheel as you put those 6-pot caliper brakes on, and it really is very strenuous on the brakes and the discs.
Reimer just stretching that advantage now. He's put a couple of tail enders between himself and Ron Haslam. Ron Haslam seems to have slipped off the pace just a little bit, because right with him now is Neil Mackenzie. And Mackenzie's already demonstrated, as number 36 gets lapped there, that's Mark Livingston, the RAF rider. Number 7 off in the gravel trap, that's Ian Simpson from Dalbeattie. So the young Scot, who was in fact a member of the Mick Grant Suzuki team a couple of years ago, now sponsored by Francis Williamson, I believe, out of the reckoning. He was in 10th place, so that's bad news. 6 points in the gravel.
Yeah, it's a shame, and the problem with that gravel is that it gets in the motorcycles everywhere. It does a great job at stopping you and saving you sliding, but the whole motorcycle needs taking apart once it's put in that gravel trap to strip every particle out.
Just look at the battle now between these two. Haslam feeding the power in. That's the problem with the Norton. It's such a torquey engine. It really screws the power out of the rear tyre, and quite easily the back could step out. He has a job keeping the front down when he puts the power on. Coming onto the straight, and a big wiggle there as I spoke. But they are a long way now behind Terry Reimer. 8 seconds is the gap. Steve, it's a lifetime, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I think somebody needs to tell Terry Reimer to slow down, because consistently he's putting in the fastest lap. He's down to 1:37.56, which is coming close to lap record times, and there really doesn't seem to be any need for it. He has a very, very comfortable lead. But the problem is, and a rider has, if you give them signals to slow down, it's so easy to lose concentration. Our old friend Kevin Schwantz has done this in the past in the 500 GPs, fell off while leading a race, which can be highly embarrassing and also quite painful.
I'm watching with a great deal of interest Haslam's teammate, number 3, Trevor Nation, because he's pulled out just a little bit extra from his Norton, and he's tagged himself on the back end of Neil Mackenzie. They're not letting the Scot go by any manner of means. They really are putting him under pressure, and he's well and truly in between those two Nortons. Haslam, however, still every bit as fast as the rest of them. Second place, number 20, Ron Haslam. Then still Mackenzie. There's Nation, number 3. From Hinckley in Leicestershire, winner of the Northwest 200 last week in Ireland. Absolutely thrilled with that win. That puts his number of wins in the Northwest to 3. He won it in 86, 87, and now again in 91. Nation loves the true road races, hence his appearance each year in the TT.
As they come up to the start and finish line, there'll be 4 laps to go. Trevor Nation will be keen to pass Neil Mackenzie, and I think he'll be even keener to pass Ron Haslam. Ron has slightly overshadowed him this here at Donington today, because there's always a battle amongst teams. Every team member wants to be the quickest one out there. Ron Haslam does have a little advantage over Trevor in the fact that he's a smaller rider, and the frontal area is smaller, he's a bit lighter, and it does make a difference even on these big 750 machines, if you can be light and throw yourself around. As Neil Mackenzie on his favourite spot once again goes through to passes Ron Haslam as they went down, and Haslam looks around the outside, but I was about to say there wasn't room for 2, but Ron Haslam proved me wrong.
What a brave man. Rocket Ron, his nickname, and he's certainly living up to that here at Donington. He just illustrated to Neil Mackenzie there that it doesn't matter what you do, Neil. If I really want to, I've got a little bit left tucked in my back pocket. And he just produced it then and flashed past Neil Mackenzie on the outside. That was great. And just look at those 3 riders closing on the back. That is an equally frantic struggle between John Reynolds, Brian Morrison and Carl Fogarty, numbers 6, 2 and 9 respectively. And it's a pity we haven't got eyes everywhere, because it's every bit as angry a tussle as the one we're watching now. Reynolds, having led from the start, has been relegated to 5th and won't be best pleased with that. He would have liked to have done just a little bit better, I suspect.
Yeah, I don't think Neil Mackenzie's done with Ron Haslam yet. He's still got a little bit to show. He's very, very fast at the old hairpin, down through Craner Cars and round the old hairpin. That's where he seems to be doing all his passing manoeuvres. Let's see if he has another crack at Ron Haslam this time.
Number 47 retiring, there's Colin Gable. So the RC30 Honda of Gable coming in, and just a little update on the 125 saga, if I may. The 2 riders who fell and were subsequently excluded, numbers 2 and 4, Rob Orme and Robert Dunlop, have both sustained broken collarbones, and that has been confirmed by the officials. So that does indeed put a very big question mark over Robert Dunlop's appearance on the other Norton in the Isle of Man TT. 2 weeks isn't very long, and short of an operation with a pin, there is no way that a collarbone would heal within 2 weeks, Steve.
No, it wouldn't heal by under normal conditions, but there is an operation that a lot of riders do have done. They have a plate put in and some screws and become bionic and metal men again. But their racing comes first, unfortunately, at times, and they screw themselves back together.
The problem with that, of course, is the delay caused when you're going through the check-in security at airports. You send the bleeper off every time.
Well, the worst part is having it removed. It's one thing having a plate put in, but when you're all healed up, it's not much fun going in and having the screws taken out.
Hence the decision by former world champion Gardner, of course, not to have metal put in his body. He'd rather let it heal naturally. Well, I can't say I blame him for that. Haslam then, still with Mackenzie, and Trevor Nation is looking very determined indeed, and I think that maybe Trevor just thinks that he could do something about Neil Mackenzie. The Team Silkaleen Honda of Mackenzie's is certainly very, very quick indeed, and that's the RC30 Honda, the VFR 750 V4 four-stroke. Just look at the lead Reimer has. That's the tail ender, and this is the trio for second, third and fourth place. It is still Haslam from Mackenzie from Nation, and I don't see much happening until we get into the last lap, Steve.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. But now Terry Reimer does have an incredible lead. Here we are back on bike with Jamie Whittam with the forward-facing camera, and he has now someone in his picture, and it's John Reynolds, I believe, or he's in 8th position, and it's John Reynolds we're going to see in front. So Jamie Whittam has finally caught someone up. He was having such a lonely ride, so let's see if he can close in on John Reynolds now. In 8th position, Jamie Whittam, so John Reynolds in 7th that we're looking at.
And ahead of Reynolds, of course, is Fogarty, so Jamie Whittam has definitely wound the Mick Grant Suzuki up. He's caught on the tail end, and that's what I said. If he could only get them in sight and wind them in a bit, then he might just be able to pull in the rest of the pack. But this action here is still closing up. It's still Nation, Mackenzie and Haslam, and I suspect at this time Haslam might just be thinking, well, I wonder what else I have to do to win one of these races. I don't know. I just keep on trying, and they're always there.
Well, as they come round now to cross the start and finish line, this is the last lap, so we're going to see if Neil Mackenzie has anything up his sleeve, or whether Ron Haslam's going to be able to keep him at bay, or even if Trevor Nation's going to be able to nip through. We're coming up now to the point where Neil Mackenzie, his favourite part on the course, through Craner Curves, 120 miles now as they break down into third gear. But no, Ron Haslam's not left him any room whatsoever, so Neil's decided that that won't be his passing place. If we're going to see anything, I think we'll maybe have to wait till they get round through to the S's.
Look at the gap, 8 seconds nearly between the race leader and this man, number 20, Ron Haslam, who's in second place. Nothing they can do now about Terry Reimer. 24-year-old Londoner has had a super ride, and there he is. What a lonely tour he's having up the straight. They're just coming out of Coppice in pursuit. They can see him, but that's about all. That's the tail ender in the front of your picture now, number 26, and that's Dave Seagrave. Right under the very suspect name of Team Spoilt Brat. Well, I leave you to draw your own conclusions there as they go down towards the Melbourne hairpin. Whatever the team, it certainly doesn't help, because look at Nation Mackenzie, it's these two. And then if Nation does manage to get his Norton past Neil Mackenzie, what can he do about teammate Ron Haslam? Over the line goes Reimer, a very good 750 race, and it's a sprint to the line. Haslam's going to get second with a massive wheelie. Another great wheelie from Nation, and Mackenzie got third. Well, the race was all about that second, third and fourth place, and I suspect quite satisfying for Ron Haslam, because he returned the compliment to Neil Mackenzie, but they've thrilled the crowd. So confirmation then of the top 6, Terry Reimer from Ron Haslam, nearly 7 seconds adrift. Mackenzie just a fraction ahead, in fact 0.2 of a second from Nation, Brian Morrison, That's a Good Ride, and Carl Fogarty stayed ahead of Reynolds and Jamie Whittam.